Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to take you on a journey that might seem bold at first, but when examined closely, reveals a compelling narrative why India is poised to replace America as the preeminent global power. This is not just speculation, it is based on clear patterns, evidence, and trends that are unfolding before our eyes. Let me share with you 3 key insights that explain this transformative shift. When examining the trajectory of global power, one cannot underestimate the fundamental role demographics play in shaping a nation's future. At first glance, numbers might appear abstract, a mere statistic to be glanced at and forgotten. But when we analyze the numbers carefully, a striking reality emerges. India's demographic advantage is arguably the single most decisive factor that positions it to surpass America as a global superpower. India is home to the youngest major population in the world today, with over 65% of its citizens under the age of 35. This is not just a statistic, it is the lifeblood of innovation, productivity, and cultural energy. A nation's youth represents more than labor. It represents vision, ambition, and the capacity to adapt at an extraordinary pace to the demands of an evolving global economy. Compare this with America, where the median age is steadily rising, birth rates are below replacement levels, and the proportion of the working age population is gradually shrinking. The contrast is stark. One nation is fueled by youth and energy, while the other is grappling with the pressures of an aging population that threatens to slow economic momentum and innovation. Yet demographics alone do not tell the entire story. The quality of human capital is equally crucial, and here India demonstrates an exceptional advantage. Across its vast geography, from sprawling metropolitan hubs to smaller towns and rural villages, millions of young Indians are engaging in education, technology, and entrepreneurship with a determination rarely matched anywhere else in the world. India produces over 2.6 million graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics each year, a number that dwarfs America's output in these critical fields. This is not simply a matter of quantity, it is a reservoir of talent that fuels research, innovation, and technological advancement. These young engineers, scientists, and tech specialists are not merely filling seats. They are actively shaping the global tech ecosystem, contributing to startups, multinational corporations, and cutting-edge innovations in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and renewable energy. What makes India's youth particularly powerful is their adaptability. Unlike previous generations constrained by traditional norms or slow-moving economies, today's young Indians are digital natives. They are fluent in new technologies, social media, and the digital marketplaces that are redefining global commerce. This fluency is coupled with an innate resilience and ability to navigate uncertainty, skills that are invaluable in a rapidly changing world. Consider the ways in which India has become a hub for software development, IT services, and digital entrepreneurship. These are not isolated pockets of excellence. They are part of a broader societal shift where innovation is celebrated, risk-taking is encouraged, and the drive to excel is culturally embedded. The very environment of India is producing a generation of young people capable of competing on a global scale, challenging established powers, and ultimately reshaping the world order. Education, too, is undergoing a transformation that further amplifies India's demographic advantage. Government initiatives and private investment are expanding access to higher education, vocational training, and specialized skill development. Rural areas, historically left behind, are now connecting to digital learning platforms that provide exposure to global knowledge and opportunities. English proficiency, while varying across regions, remains sufficient to enable India's youth to engage effectively with international markets, research collaborations, and business ventures. This combination of access, skill development, and global connectivity positions India as a nation whose workforce is not only large, but strategically equipped to tackle the challenges of the 21st century. Another aspect often overlooked is the sheer scale of India's population, which creates a dynamic internal market. The young demographic is not just labor. It is consumers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and cultural influencers. This internal demand drives domestic industries, encourages investment, and fosters an environment in which businesses can thrive. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. A young, ambitious population creates economic opportunities, and these opportunities, in turn, stimulate further innovation and engagement. In contrast, America's aging population faces a different reality. Older populations require increased health care, social security, and infrastructure to support their needs, diverting resources away from investment in innovation, education, and future growth. While America continues to attract talent through immigration, India's advantage lies in its natural, organic growth. A vast and energetic workforce growing from within its own borders, deeply familiar with the local context yet fully capable of competing globally. Moreover, the youth of India are shaping not only the economy, but also the nation's cultural and political identity. This generation is deeply aware of global trends, ambitious in its career aspirations, and increasingly engaged in political and social activism. They are not passive participants. They are actively shaping the policies, priorities, and economic strategies of their nation. In contrast, America's demographic shift toward an older population brings caution, conservatism, and a slower pace of change. While experience is valuable, it often comes with rigidity and resistance to new paradigms, whereas India's youth-driven energy thrives on disruption, creativity, and bold experimentation, even when viewed through the lens of technology adoption and digital transformation. India's demographic advantage becomes more evident. Young Indians are at the forefront of adopting smartphones, digital payments, online education, and e-commerce, often leapfrogging legacy systems that slow older economies. This rapid adoption of technology not only fuels domestic growth, but positions India as a critical player in global technological innovation. India's youth are shaping the digital economy, creating startups, apps, and platforms that reach millions worldwide. This tech-savvy population is simultaneously a labor force, a consumer base, and a generator of global influence, a trifecta that cannot be ignored when predicting future global power. In essence, India's demographic advantage is more than a statistic. It is a strategic asset, a force multiplier that permeates every aspect of national development. The combination of youth, adaptability, education, technological fluency, and sheer scale creates a dynamic and self-sustaining engine of growth. America's aging population, in contrast, faces constraints that limit innovation and economic expansion over time. By the middle of the 21st century, these demographic realities will translate into a decisive shift in global influence, where India's energetic, skilled, and growing population drives a level of productivity, innovation, and global engagement that America may struggle to match. Demographics, therefore, are destiny. India's young population is not merely a statistic. It is the foundation for the nation's rise, the source of its energy, creativity, and resilience. When combined with its growing economy, technological advancement, and strategic influence, India's demographic advantage is the first and perhaps most decisive reason why the 21st century will belong to India. The seeds of this transformation are already visible in classrooms, tech hubs, entrepreneurial ventures, and digital platforms across the nation. It is an unstoppable wave of talent, ambition, and youthful vigor that will shape the global order and position India to replace America as a superpower in the years to come. Another compelling factor that underscores why India is poised to replace America as a global superpower is its remarkable economic growth and strategic positioning. While economic strength alone does not guarantee global dominance, it forms the foundation upon which influence, innovation, and power are built. India's economic trajectory over the past few decades demonstrates a nation that is not only catching up with established powers, but is increasingly setting the pace in sectors that will define the future. Unlike many Western economies that are stagnating or growing at moderate rates, India has consistently achieved annual GDP growth rates of 6 to 7%, sometimes even higher during periods of robust investment and reform. This level of growth, sustained over time, compounds exponentially, creating an economic momentum that is difficult to rival. The diversity and resilience of India's economy are particularly noteworthy. India is not dependent on a single sector or resource. Rather, it boasts a multi-faceted economy spanning agriculture, manufacturing, services, and technology. The agricultural sector, long seen as the backbone of India, continues to modernize through mechanization, biotechnology, and data-driven farming techniques, increasing productivity while sustaining livelihoods for hundreds of millions. Meanwhile, the industrial and manufacturing sectors are rapidly expanding, driven by initiatives such as Make in India, which aim to transform the nation into a global manufacturing hub. Unlike traditional industrial powers that face high labor costs and declining domestic production, India offers an abundant labor force, competitive costs, and a policy environment increasingly favorable to business. This combination makes it an attractive destination for multinational corporations seeking alternatives to China or other traditional manufacturing bases, particularly as global supply chains diversify in response to geopolitical tensions. The services and technology sectors further cement India's economic advantage. India has emerged as a global leader in IT services, software development, digital solutions, and business process outsourcing. Cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune have become international tech hubs, attracting talent capital and innovation. But India is not stopping there. With the rise of artificial intelligence, fintech, cloud computing, and renewable energy, the nation is positioning itself at the cutting edge of industries that will dominate the global economy in the 21st century. Startups in India are attracting billions in venture capital, launching products that compete directly with companies in Silicon Valley, and creating global impact at a scale unimaginable just 2 decades ago. In essence, India's economy is not just growing, it is transforming, diversifying, and modernizing at a pace that rivals, and in some sectors exceeds, that of established Western powers. Strategic positioning also plays a critical role in India's rise. Geography, often overlooked, is destiny. India occupies a key location between the Middle East, East Asia, and Africa, granting it access to vital maritime trade routes, energy flows, and regional markets. The Indian Ocean, long a corridor for global commerce, places India at the center of trade between major continents. Control over these routes and the ability to influence regional stability enhances India's leverage on the global stage. Beyond geography, India has cultivated strategic partnerships that extend its influence far beyond its borders. The nation maintains strong relationships with key players such as Japan, Australia, and the European Union, while simultaneously navigating complex relationships with neighboring powers. This diplomatic agility allows India to position itself as a leader of not only regional but global initiatives, a role traditionally associated with Western powers. Another element of India's economic strategy is its focus on infrastructure development. Roads, ports, airports, and digital infrastructure are expanding rapidly, bridging the gap between urban and rural regions and integrating India's domestic economy into global networks. Smart cities, industrial corridors, and high-speed transport systems are not just infrastructure projects. They are transformative initiatives that enhance productivity, connectivity, and trade competitiveness. This infrastructure revolution supports both domestic economic growth and India's ability to participate fully in the global economy. In comparison, the United States faces challenges in modernizing its infrastructure, with decades-old systems, rising costs, and political gridlock limiting its capacity to maintain the same level of competitiveness. India's emphasis on innovation as an economic driver is also critical. The nation has recognized that long-term growth depends on its ability to create, adapt, and export cutting-edge technologies. Programs such as Digital India are not merely symbolic. They integrate digital services across governance, commerce, education, and healthcare, creating a connected ecosystem that fuels productivity and inclusivity. In parallel, India's investment in renewable energy, including solar and wind power, demonstrates foresight in addressing both domestic needs and global environmental challenges. By investing in sectors that will dominate future markets, India is securing a sustainable economic trajectory that positions it to compete directly with and eventually surpass America in strategic industries. It is also important to note that India's economic rise is not dependent solely on foreign capital or trade partnerships. Internal consumption, driven by a young and aspirational population, provides a stable engine for growth. The emerging middle class, numbering over 300 million, is demanding goods, services, education, and technology, creating domestic market opportunities that reduce reliance on external factors. This internal dynamism, combined with foreign investment, creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Growth fuels consumption, which fuels innovation and investment, which fuels further growth. America's economy, by contrast, relies heavily on established industries and an aging consumer base, which, while wealthy, does not exhibit the same rate of expansion and dynamism seen in India. India's economic growth and strategic positioning, therefore, are inseparable from its broader ascent to global power. Economic strength provides the resources to invest in technology, infrastructure, defense, and diplomacy. Strategic positioning maximizes the utility of that economic power, extending influence across continents. Unlike America, which faces structural challenges from debt, aging populations, and political polarization, India is benefiting from growth that is both organic and sustainable. Its young workforce, internal markets, and diversified economy are creating a resilience that allows India to adapt to global shifts with agility, making it increasingly plausible that India will eclipse America in economic influence and global power in the coming decades. When we examine the evidence, the sustained GDP growth, the diversification of industry, the technological innovation, the infrastructure expansion, and the strategic positioning, it becomes clear that India's economic engine is robust, dynamic, and future-oriented. America remains powerful, but India is not simply catching up, it is racing ahead in sectors that will define global power in the 21st century. Economic might, after all, is the foundation of influence, and India's foundation is growing stronger by the day, positioning it to replace America as the world's leading power. Beyond demographics and economic strength, one of the most decisive factors positioning India to replace America as a global superpower is its growing geopolitical influence and the projection of soft power. Power on the global stage is rarely determined by military might or economic output alone. It is shaped by a nation's ability to influence others, forge alliances, and project its values, culture, and ideas in a way that earns respect and loyalty across continents. India excels in all these domains, creating a multifaceted approach to power that extends far beyond mere territorial or economic dominance. Geographically, India occupies a strategic position of immense significance. Located at the crossroads of East Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, India controls access to critical maritime trades, energy corridors, and regional markets. The Indian Ocean, which serves as the lifeblood of global trade, places India in a position of leverage that few nations can claim. Control over these routes not only facilitates commerce, but also grants India the capacity to influence regional security, monitor strategic developments, and project power when necessary. The nation's geographical position allows it to engage actively in both Asian and global affairs, making it a key player in shaping the international order. In addition to geography, India has demonstrated remarkable diplomatic agility. Unlike many established powers, which rely on traditional alliances or coercive influence, India has cultivated relationships that combine mutual benefit with strategic independence. It maintains strong ties with countries like Japan, Australia, and members of the European Union, while simultaneously asserting its sovereignty in decision-making. This careful balance allows India to act as a stabilizing force in the region, mediate disputes, and participate in multilateral initiatives without being overly dependent on any single partner. Such a position enhances India's credibility and influence, creating a foundation for leadership that is grounded in respect rather than domination. India's soft power is another critical dimension of its global influence. While military strength and economic might can compel compliance, soft power inspires cooperation, admiration, and voluntary alignment with a nation's vision. India's culture, values, and democratic institutions resonate worldwide. Bollywood films, Indian literature, yoga cuisine, and music have all become global phenomena, providing a cultural bridge that draws people and nations closer to India. Beyond culture, India's identity as the world's largest democracy gives it a moral and ideological appeal. In a time when authoritarian models are increasingly scrutinized, India's example of democratic governance in a vast, diverse, multilingual society is seen as a model of resilience, adaptability, and inclusivity. This combination of culture and governance creates a global perception of India as not just a powerful nation, but a leader worthy of emulation. Military modernization complements India's soft power, creating a balanced projection of influence. India possesses one of the largest standing armies in the world, an advanced naval presence in the Indian Ocean, and a growing arsenal of modern technology, including missiles and space-based capabilities. But India's military approach is strategic rather than aggressive. It emphasizes defense, regional stability, and the protection of national interests while using its capabilities as leverage in negotiations and partnerships. This measured approach enhances India's credibility on the global stage, demonstrating that it wields power responsibly. A factor that attracts allies, investors, and international respect. India's approach to multilateral engagement further strengthens its geopolitical influence. The nation actively participates in the United Nations, G20, BRICS, and other international forums, often advocating for policies that reflect the interests of developing nations while promoting global stability. India's ability to combine national interests with global responsibility positions it as a natural leader in international affairs. Countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America increasingly look to India not only as a partner in trade and development, but as a source of political and strategic guidance. This growing network of influence extends India's reach far beyond its borders and builds a coalition of nations aligned with its vision for the future. Another critical element of India's rising influence is its technological and scientific achievements, which have geopolitical implications. India's space program, including satellite launches, lunar exploration, and Mars missions, demonstrates its ability to compete with established powers in high technology domains. Its advances in renewable energy, digital infrastructure, and cybersecurity position India as a global innovator capable of shaping standards, norms, and technologies worldwide. These achievements are not merely scientific milestones, they translate directly into geopolitical leverage, enhancing India's reputation as a nation capable of shaping global trends rather than merely responding to them. Soft power, strategic positioning, and technological advancement combine to create a new kind of influence, one that is multifaceted, resilient, and sustainable. India's approach is not confrontational, it is collaborative, visionary, and adaptable. By projecting cultural, political, and technological influence simultaneously, India creates a sphere of global leadership that challenges the traditional dominance of the United States. While America remains powerful, it faces growing challenges: political polarization, overextension of military commitments, and a less agile approach to global influence. India, on the other hand, is steadily building credibility, respect, and partnerships across continents, positioning itself as the natural leader of the 21st century. Moreover, India's influence is enhanced by its economic and demographic foundations. Its growing economy provides the resources necessary to invest in defense, diplomacy, and development programs abroad. Its young, dynamic population fuels innovation, entrepreneurship, and cultural production that resonate globally. These internal strengths reinforce India's ability to wield influence externally, creating a cycle in which domestic growth enhances global impact, and global partnerships, in turn, fuel domestic development. In conclusion, India's geopolitical influence and soft power are not incidental. They are deliberate, strategic, and deeply integrated into the nation's rise. Through a combination of geography, diplomacy, culture, technology, and military modernization, India has positioned itself to project influence across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Unlike traditional powers that rely heavily on coercion or economic dominance, India's approach blends respect, collaboration, and visionary leadership. This unique combination makes India not only a rising power, but a credible, sustainable candidate to replace America as the central actor in global affairs. The evidence is clear: India's strategic positioning, cultural influence, and geopolitical engagement create a foundation for leadership that is durable and far-reaching. When combined with its demographic advantage and economic growth, India's geopolitical and soft power ensures that the nation is not merely participating in global affairs, but actively shaping them. In the coming decades, India's influence is set to expand dramatically, making it increasingly plausible that the world's center of power will shift from America to India. When we examine demographics, economic growth, and geopolitical influence, a clear pattern emerges: India is not only rising, it is poised to surpass America in influence and global power. This is not wishful thinking. It is an evidence-based projection rooted in observable trends and strategic realities. The question is no longer if India will rise, but when it will fully claim its place as a preeminent global power. The seeds have been sown through its youthful population, dynamic economy, and growing influence. The momentum is unstoppable, and the world is watching a nation ready to shape the 21st century in its own vision. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is not set in stone. But one thing is increasingly clear: India is on its way to replacing America on the global stage.